Alright, so it's picking up again. Episode 6 was pretty great. Season 2 of The Bad Batch is still going on strong, baby. I know episode 4 and 5 was not all that, but episode 6 brought back Gungi, brought back the Trandoshans, Sheik, the Wookiees. It was chock full of great Star Wars material, especially when talking about Order 66. You see, it's difficult to say how many Jedi died or even survived after or during Order 66 because there were roughly 10,000 active Jedi at the beginning of the Clone Wars. You would imagine that some died and some grew into Jedi knighthood, that the numbers would rise even further. There was another sad fact that as the conflict of the Clone Wars persisted, there were other Jedi that simply abandoned the Jedi Order altogether as they sensed the rise of the dark side. Whoever was left, they were at the end of the Clone Wars, found themselves targeted by clone troopers that have been ordered to execute Order 6, and that Jedi trap was finally snapped shut. As we saw by the films and even the video games, many of the most powerful Jedi of all time were killed during Order 66, many of them even sacrificing themselves to save their Padawans. Whether it was his master or something else, we clearly see that a new Order 66 survivor was just introduced in Gungi, and in this video I want to discuss two major possibilities as to how actually Gungi survived and escaped the clone troopers. Back in 2002, the production of Revenge of the Sith had started. Because Revenge of the Sith was to introduce and scenes were to take place on Kashyyyk, some of the staff wanted to introduce a Wookiee Jedi. However, it was George Lucas who abandoned these plans altogether. He insisted that there should never be a Wookiee Jedi. However, this was a clear problem because during that time in the expanded universe, there were already quite a few Wookiee Jedi that had been introduced. We all know how George Lucas felt about comic books and other TV shows that he insisted were not approved him, and he never really explained why he didn't want a Wookiee Jedi in Revenge of the Sith. However, as we see by the Star Wars Clone Wars animated show, George Lucas finally relented, whether that be because of Dave Filoni or somebody else. He let his grudge with Wookiee Jedis go, and they finally introduced a Wookiee Jedi named Gungi in Season 5 of the Clone Wars. In fact, that is one of the most memorable and entertaining episodes of all time. A number of younglings and Padawans were sent to Ilum in order to obtain kyber crystals for their lightsaber. This is of course one of the most important rituals that a Jedi should pass. It was even inserted in Jedi Fallen Order. It was one of the best missions that the game had to offer. We know though that Gungi was one of these small Padawans or younglings. He finally obtained his precious kyber crystal by meditating at the heart of the crystal cave while water froze over. He in the end was commended by Yoda for patience. Why fans fell in love with Gungi even back then was what happened afterwards, because in the Jedi ship Crucible that the younglings were traveling back to Coruscant in, it was attacked by pirates, and this is where Gungi could show off his prowess more. So even back then they were showing us that Gungi is resourceful and reliable to some extent. Throughout all these years, Lucasfilm took notice of Gungi's popularity. The fans clearly loved him, therefore he was chosen to be one of the Order 66 survivors by the writers, and especially, I assume, Dave Filoni. Even with the episode though, they did not make it clear how Gungi survived Order 66. So this is my explanation as to how he did it. You see, George Lucas was kind of right back in the day because a Wookiee Jedi is kind of unfair. Many species of Jedi and human alike have their limitations. A Wookiee Jedi is both powerful, cunning, smart, and could use the Force. This is the advantages that a Wookiee would have, presumably. This is where him escaping the clone troopers during Order 66 kind of makes sense, even though he's still relatively a small Wookiee. One clear possibility could actually be that during the time of Order 66, Gungi was serving on a jungle-like planet, similar to where he was born and where he feels the most connection. As we see in the episode, he actually feels Kashyyyk in his bones. It's not just a place for him or a planet, it's his actual home world, and he feels connected to a similar planet to this, would serve to the advantage of Gungi against the clone troopers. I parallel Gungi's survival story to Quinlan Voss's, because Quinlan Voss was actually on Kashyyyk when Order 66 was executed. He successfully evaded all clone troopers, including Clone Commander Fei. Commander Fei, in fact, was so ruthless and was so angry that Voss had escaped that he yelled out in the jungle so Voss could hear him. Fei said that if Voss didn't come out of hiding, Fei would call in an airstrike, kill himself, Voss, and even the neighboring Wookiee village. But undeniably, the jungle would serve in a Jedi's favor, especially a Jedi like Gungi. So the most popular opinion right now is that Gungi, perhaps not on Kashyyyk during Order 66, he was serving on a jungle-like planet which served at the advantage of Gungi, of course, naturally. And even the Jedi tend to send members of the Jedi Order on missions that suited their skill set, so this would be perfect for Gungi. And now we come to the second reason, of course, and that is, unfortunately, we do not see Gungi's Jedi Master. As far as we know, Gungi was a Padawan still, and because we don't see his master in Episode 6, this means that wasn't an Order 66 survivor, he was unfortunately killed. As we see by Jedi Fallen Order and a lot of other material, many of Jedi Masters sacrificed themselves in order for their Padawans to be able to live and escape. So it's undeniably possible that Gungi's masters sacrificed themselves just in order for Gungi to escape, as many masters did. Whatever the case though, Gungi wound up alone, afraid, scared, as many Padawans were this time, as we see with Cal Kestis. You have to remember that Order 66 was back in Episode 1 of Season 1 of The Bad Batch. So for the crew and Omega to find him in Episode 6 of Season 2, we know that a lot of time has passed after Order 6, and more power to Gungi, who did actually survive alone for a long time. In the end, thankfully, even though he was caught, Omega was right in the nick of time. She found him, rescued him, and the crew escorted him to Kashyyyk, where we see him reunite with other Wookiees, and fortunately, Gungi's story survives and continues. So I hope we do see him in future. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Until then.